Hi. In this lesson, we're going to be working on slope-intercept and point-slope form. Now, the good thing is you already worked on a section that was just simply on slope-intercept. So what we're going to do is we're going to first recap what we learned. Last lesson, we learned that every time that we have a slope and an intercept, we can create an equation in slope-intercept form. We remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The y and the x you never touch, but the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. We said y-intercept was when x is equal to 0, right? So the question is, what happens when we don't have the y-intercept? Well, luckily for us, they create an equation. And this is going to be the second equation you're going to use to help construct the line. And this is called point-slope form. Point-slope form, look at the name. It says point, meaning that you're going to be given a random point or a point, and you're going to be using the slope. So both y equals mx plus b and point-slope form have the same common slope. The question is, what point should you use? Now, the way I want you to memorize this to make you more efficient is if they give you the slope and the y-intercept, you're going to use y equals mx plus b because the b represents the y-intercept, right? And that's your b. But if they give you a random point, and I want you to remember the word random, if they give you a random point, it's better to use point-slope form because there is no b involved. So if the y-intercept isn't given, we can't use y equals mx plus b. We're going to use y minus 1 equals mx minus x1. Now, to be fair, there's many methods of finding these. We're just going to stick to one method that's going to work every single time. So again, y equal mx plus b is used when you have the y-intercept, and point-slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1 is used when you have a random point that's not the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is a point that has x is 0, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The first question says, write an equation in point-slope form. So the second that you see that they're asking you for point-slope form, what you're going to do is you're going to write the formula. Y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. Now remember, we're going to use this whenever they tell us to, right? So they give us the m equals 4, and they give us a point passing through 0, 5. Notice 0, 5, 0 is the x. So technically, this is the y-intercept, but we're still going to use this by plugging it in because they asked us to put in the specific form, which is point-slope form. How do I know I could use this? Notice something. I have a random point, and I have a slope. That is point-slope. So when I plug everything in, don't forget what we did in the last lesson. If you have a point, call it x1, y1, because it's your first point. So when you plug it in, never touch the y. So it's going to be y minus y1, which is y minus what? Y minus 5 is equal to the slope, which is 4, and then x minus 0. And that's pretty much it. You're done. But the problem is, you know and I know that we don't like to have 0 as an answer. So what's going to happen is you're going to actually rewrite this to be y minus 5 is equal to the 0 disappears, and all we have is an x. So I'm really going to just write this as 4x. And that's it. I'm done. Now, there's going to be more that we could do to this formula, but we'll do it in a few problems, okay? So again, point-slope form is the formula. You need a point and you need a slope, and that's it. Plug them into x1 and y1. Okay, moving on to example 2. It says write an equation in point-slope form, so that's my key word. So I'm going to write the formula y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. So all I need is my slope, which they gave me in a point. They did, x1, y1. So what do I do when I plug it in? I'm going to get this. Y minus, be careful, negative 5, so I'm going to use parentheses, is equal to my slope, which is negative 2, x minus 1, because that's x1. Now, I wish I was done, but unfortunately, you know that if you have two negatives, what happens? It turns to a positive. So this is going to become y plus 5 is equal to negative 2 parentheses x minus 1, and that's it. I'm done. Nothing else I can do. How do I know I'm done? Because that's what they're asking, this point-slope form. Now, is there something else we could do? We could, but it's going to be later on in a future problem. Okay. So for example 3, notice something that's different. Passing through, so write an equation in point-slope form, same formula we've been working with. Passing through, the reason why they say passing through is because it's a line. You're going to pass through these points to create this line. But what didn't they give us? They didn't give us the what? They didn't give us a slope. So the question is, how do we find a slope when we don't have it? What do? We use the method of what happens when they give us 2 points. We use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Notice that this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So when we use the formula, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get 8 minus 5 over 3 minus 2, which is going to be 3 over 1, which is simply just 3. 3 represents my 1. 3 represents my m, my m, which is rise over run, okay? So now I have my m, which is great. I have a slope, but what about a point? I actually have 2 points. So the good thing about point slope form is you could use any point, any random point. So it doesn't matter if you use x1, y1, or you use the other one as x2, y2. Remember, the only reason we called it second was because it came second. If it were actually be flipped, that would be x1, y1. So it doesn't really matter which point you use. And I'm going to show you in a future slide. So what's going to happen now is what's our setup going to be? I'm going to use this point for my formula. Don't forget the formula. It's y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in x1 and y1. So it's going to be y minus 5 is equal to my m, which is 3, and then x minus 2. And that's it. I'm done. I don't have to simplify it. I don't have to change it because I already have it. Okay? Now, is this form going to help me graph? Do I know my y-intercept? I don't. That's why point slope form is just a tool to help get to slope-intercept form. But when do we use point slope form? When we get a random point and a slope. Okay? All right. What would the other answer be? In case you're wondering, if I wanted to use my other point, my answer would be this. Y minus 8 is equal to 3 because it's the same slope, but it's going to be x minus 3. And that's it. These would be my 2 answers that I could accept for point slope form of this equation. Okay, so for example 4, what I want you to do is I want you to try this one on your own. Look at your notes. Let them help guide you for this problem if you get stuck. But I want you to kind of see what's happening in this question and see if you can do it on your own. Okay, so in this question, it's asking you for point slope form. Nothing different from what we've done in the last few examples. But notice what they don't give you. They don't give you a what? They don't give you a slope. In any question they don't give you a slope, you have to do everything in your power to find the slope first because every form that we use requires you to use a slope. So first I have to ask myself, okay, how do I find the slope when I'm given 2 points? Notice the first point is x1, y1, and the second one is x2, y2. So because of that, I know my formula is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And when I work this out, I'm going to get 7 minus 3 over, be careful, 1 minus negative 1. Now, the reason why I'm going to say be careful is because what happens when you have 2 negatives next to each other? It's going to turn into a positive. So this actually is going to become 4 over 2, which simply is 2. What does 2 represent? 2 represents your m. How important is your m? Very important. So now I have a random point. I have 2 actually random points, and now I have my slope. But the question is, what point do I use? Remember what we said? We use the which point? The easiest point. So for me, the easiest point is 1, 7 because there are no negatives. So when I plug this in, this is what I'm going to get y minus y1, which would be 7, is equal to my slope, which is 2, and then x minus x1, which is 1. And that's my final answer. That's written in point slope form. Now, what would my answer be if I wrote the other point, negative 1, 3? It'd be this. Y minus y1, which is y minus 3, equals my slope is not going to change. It's still 2. X minus, and I have to be careful, negative 1. So what happens with the 2 negatives? They become a positive. So what's my final answer? It's y minus 3 is equal to 2x plus 1. And that's it. I'm done. That's my answer. Okay? So either form, what's in blue or what's in green, is going to be an adequate answer for your point slope form. Okay. So for example 5, you're going to notice a little bit different. The question now has a table, which is perfectly fine. But the question's asking you for write an equation in slope-intercept form. If you remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And at first, I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can do y equals mx plus b. M is my slope. I know that when I'm given a table, I'm going to find the patterns. But what about the b? What's the y-intercept? Well, remember, we said y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So when you look at the table, is there an x that's equal to 0? Unfortunately, there isn't. Then what do? How do I use slope-intercept when there isn't a y-intercept? Unfortunately, you can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the equation that allows us to pick any random point. That's called point slope formula. So what we're going to do is we're going to create point slope formula. Y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. And my first goal is to ask myself, what's my m? So what we're going to do is we're going to find our m. 3, 6, 9, 12 is 3. And then 2, 4, 6, 8 is plus 2. So I know that my slope is going to be y over x, which is 3 over 2. That's awesome. But remember, I don't have a y-intercept. I only have random points. So because of that, I have to use point slope form. Now, is this the only method? There isn't. There's another method, but this method is going to work every time, and it's going to keep you organized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that my slope is 3/2. That's okay. But I need to pick a random point. So I'm going to pick the first one, which is 3, this is 3 and 2. So as a coordinate, my coordinate is 2, 3. Remember, x before y. So I'm going to use that point to plug it in. This is what I'm going to get. I'm going to get y minus y1, which is y minus 3, is equal to my slope, which is 3 over 2x minus 2. Now, when you do this, if they were asking you for point slope form, you're done. But unfortunately, they're asking you for slope-intercept, which means I need y by itself and mx plus b so I can get the y-intercept. So what do we do to get this? We do it in 2 steps. You ready? First step is you're going to distribute. Now, unfortunately, I gave you a fraction because I want to make sure that we get used to for working with fractions as well. When you multiply fractions, don't forget you're going to distribute. So the first half is going to be 3 half x. But when you distribute, I want you to put the 1 over it. Now, what happens is just multiply straight across, top with top. 3 times 2 is going to be minus 6 on top, and on the bottom is 2 times 1, which is going to be 2. Now ask yourself, does 6 and 2 go into each other? It does. So I'm going to rewrite everything else, y minus 3, but I'm going to turn 6 over 2 to be 3. So that's what I'm going to do on my next line, which is over here. It's going to be y minus 3 is equal to 3 halves x minus 3. Now the last step is I need to get y by itself. So how do I get y by itself? First step was to distribute. Second step is to isolate y by moving over the term next to it. There's a negative 3, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Make sure you add it to the number. The 3's cancel on the left and the 3's cancel on the right. So my final answer is y equals 3 over 2x plus 0, but I'm not going to write. Remember in a previous lesson, we said don't write the 0. And that's my answer. That's slope-intercept. So why wouldn't I write the y-intercept? Because when you don't write the y-intercept as 0, it just knows that your graph is starting from the origin. So would I be able to just look at the equation and find the y-intercept from the table? You could if you're able to find the patterns and it exists. But unfortunately, sometimes it's kind of hard. So what we do is we use point slope form. So when you write it in point slope form, you got to remember, after you put it in point slope form, there's 2 steps. Distribute it out and move over the number that's next to it. And then we didn't put the 0 in this situation because it was 0, which means it starts at the origin. Okay? All right, let's try example 8. So slide 8, which is example 6. In example 6, the question says, write an equation in slope-intercept form. So again, they want y equals mx plus b. This is what they want. But the problem is I have to find my m and my b. M, you guys already know, it's the pattern. 3, 1, -1, -3. Hope you agree it's -2. You're counting down by 2. And then for the x's, it's 3, 6, 9, 12. It's counting by 3. So for my slope, my m is going to equal to -2 over 3, which means it's a negative line. So now once we find that, find the y-intercept. It's b. Where is it? Unfortunately, there is no x equals 0, so what do? We have to use point slope form. So I'm going to grab the formula, y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. I got to find a random point, so pick the easiest point. For me, I'm going to pick 3, 3. If you want to use 6, 1, go for it. It doesn't matter what point you use as long as you pick one point that belongs to the table. So I'm going to plug everything in, and when I plug everything, this is what I get. Y minus 3 is equal to -2 over 3. I apologize for the fraction again. And then x minus 3. So once I do that, I'm going to distribute. That's going to be -2 over 3x. And then remember, when it comes to fractions times a number, make sure they're both fractions and do top with top, bottom with bottom. So -2 times -3 is going to be a positive 6. And on the bottom is 3 times 1, which is 3. Ask yourself if you can simplify and bring everything else down. Now you can't simplify this, so I'm going to come over here and it's going to be y minus 3 is equal to -2/3 x plus 2. Now, I wish I was done. I'm almost done. I really am. My last step is to do what? My last step is to get y by itself, isolate it. So we said distribute and move over. What am I going to move over? The -3 by doing adding 3. And my final answer is going to be y equals -2/3 x. 2 plus 3 is 5. And that's my answer in slope-intercept form. How useful is this vary? Where's the y-intercept? What do you think? Remember, it's the last number in the y equals mx is b. It's the b, which is 5. So I know that my starting point, my y-intercept is at 5 on the y-axis, and my slope would be technically -2 over 3. And that's how you do it. Okay, let's try one more. I want you to do this one on your own. As you're doing it, ask yourself, why am I putting it in slope-intercept form? And why am I starting off with point slope form? Why didn't I just go straight to it? Ask yourself these questions because this is going to make you better in these type of problems. Okay. Pause the videos, and I'll be right here. So for this question, it says, write an equation in slope-intercept form. Again, they want it in y equals mx plus b, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on the side, y equals mx plus b. I need m. I don't have it. I need b. Maybe I have it. Is there an x equals 0? There isn't, so I don't have it. So what's my m? What are you counting up by? You're counting up by 4. and then 3, 5, 7, 9. You're counting up by 2. So my m is going to be is going to be 4 over 2, which is simply going to be 2. There was no y-intercept, which means I have to use point slope form. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it. Y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. I'm going to pick a random point. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to pick 3 comma negative 5 because, to be fair, that's a negative on there. So I'm going to go to the positive side and pick I'm going to pick 7 comma 3. Remember, x before y. A lot of times, the way the table's written, you're going to want to put the y first. Just be careful. Put the x first. So the next step after I do this is going to be plug it all in. Y minus y1, which is y minus 3, is equal to my slope, which is 2, x minus 7. Now, some of you guys are going to leave your slope as 4 over 2. Simplify it. Make your life a lot easier. Nobody wants to work with fractions, so if we don't have to, why do it? So then after I do that, I'm going to distribute the 2 twice. It's going to be 2x minus 14. And then on the left side, it's y minus 3. And then the last step is after you distribute, what do? You move over. Move what over? Whatever's next to y, which in this case is a negative 3. So I'm going to do the opposite. Plus 3 plus 3. I'm going to come to the side so I have more space. And my final answer is y equals, the 3's cancel out, 2x negative 14 plus 3. 1 negative you subtract. 14 minus 3 is 11. 14 is bigger, so it's minus 11. And that's my final answer. That's it. So this is a problem that requires a lot of steps. Think about where we started from and where we are. The fact that we're able to do these steps and we're able to comprehend it makes us better at this. But remember, if you have the y-intercept, there's no need to do any of this if they're asking you for slope-intercept form. But when you have random points, unfortunately, you have to put in point slope form and work the problem out. Okay? So remember, there's 2 extra steps: distribute and move over. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped, and I'll see you next time.